an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering Sex Education, Season 1, Episode 6. In this episode, the only thing of note that I have to report is that Otis has not made up with Eric, and everything else in this episode is invalid. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha. Thank you very much to Ashleigh for commissioning this episode. What's up, Ashleigh? So, yeah, look, I said what I said. I am disgusted that after everything, he has not made up with Eric. Like, he says something to his mom, like, he won't talk to me. And I'm like, when? Sit and tell me of the many times that you tried to speak to him that it didn't work. Because I don't think that you put any effort in at all. You cast him an awkward look when you arrived at school, over by the bikes. Eventually, after talking to your mother, you attempt to call him. That's literally all you have done. I am unimpressed, disappointed in you as a friend, and still can't wrap my mind around the fact that you saw that he had been hit in the face and you don't know what that means. Like, I am so irritated. I'm so mad. I will tell you guys honestly, it was really hard for me to take an interest in anything else that was going on with Otis this episode because I was so distracted by the fact that he didn't seem to give a shit about his best friend. It was one thing, the night that he comes home, I was already mad, but I thought, after sleeping on it, after realizing, after sleeping on it, he would put the pieces together and begin to realize maybe that his mother would tell him, because you got the feeling the mother knew what was going on. I don't know how much Eric told her, but I'm assuming everything. I would have liked her to tell Otis if that were the case. Now, caveat, I don't want her to break Eric's confidence, but we know that she has no boundaries. So breaking Eric's confidence would feel on brand for her. But also, even as much as I would like her to tell Otis, it still feels a little like cheating, because Otis should not have to be told exactly what's going on, because he should give enough of a fuck to go find out himself. So as much as I wish that she would tell him, it's not her job. And the fact that he doesn't know, it's on him, entirely on him, and his complete lack of curiosity or logic in this. So I just had to start off the episode with that, because I am so disappointed, and I am not sure what the show is going to do with this. I am sort of withholding judgment because I'm trying to see whether or not the show realizes how incredibly unforgivable this is. And I don't know if they do or not. I don't know. I think that they wanted to give Eric an episode where he's dealing with this on his own without support, so that we could see what happens when he sort of pops. But I really want the consequences of Otis choosing to just maintain a distance for no good reason. I really want them to deal with that in an honest way, you know? Ashleigh says, I think he does realize that he's being an asshole. He doesn't open up to his dad, and Maeve also doesn't know why they're not talking. He just needs to get the fuck over his pride, because I think he knows what he should be doing is apologizing. Yeah, it's just and the reason that I say I don't think that he has put together the logical conclusion of what probably happened to Eric is because I don't want to think that Otis knows that Eric was the victim of a fucking hate crime and is still letting his pride run the show. I don't want to think that that's how he is. I am choosing to believe that Otis just thinks Eric's mad at him for abandoning him on his birthday, which, let's be honest, that would be fucking plenty. If I were abandoned by my friend on my birthday and wound up in a strange place in costume alone, and they just told me they weren't coming while I was sitting waiting, I would be devastated, and it would take a long time before I felt like that person was my friend again. So, personally, that's enough. But the added aspect of the hate crime just takes it to a different level. So let's just talk about Eric since we're here. We see Eric getting ready, and it was so devastating. So this is one of those things where people who are gender nonconforming just can't win. Because it doesn't seem like this is the case with Eric, but let's just say that you're a trans woman. If you don't present as hyper feminine, then people don't believe you. But if you do, and you're not passing enough, then you get shit for that. So every single day when you get dressed, you have to decide exactly what kind of bullshit you're prepared to put up with today. And what kind of emotional labor you are prepared to engage in. Which is so incredibly exhausting. I can't imagine. And it's just the kind of thing, I was talking about this with Owen, and obviously I am not at all trying to put my experience at the same level in any way. I'm trying to use my very limited understanding to sort of empathize. But the example that I was giving Owen about my feeling of fatigue, being somebody heavy, when you dress up, which is how I used to operate as a standard, I would always be in dresses because I like them. I'm wearing a dress right now, to be honest, but it's a very casual one. I used to dress up every day. I wore cute dresses. I did my makeup. And this was back when I lived in Philadelphia. And then I moved here and I put on a little bit more weight. And it became this thing that if I was dressed cute, everybody would want to know where I was going, what I was doing. It was like a thing where I stopped dressing to draw attention to myself because it was because I was heavy, it drew more attention to me and got more commentary and I just didn't want to deal with it every day. So I began to really pare back on the way I dressed, how much jewelry I wore, how I did my makeup, because I found it tiring to constantly be scrutinized by a bunch of basics. And I don't want to always explain myself. And it was really shocking how often it came up with total strangers. So I can only imagine if you are somebody who is not conforming to a societal expectation and norm, how much fucking worse it is. We are just so attached to gender and the way it is supposed to be shown. I have not seen the kind of reaction from people to anything like I have seen to gender being flouted in their eyes. You put a man who has facial hair in makeup and a dress and people lose their fucking minds. They have no idea how to cope. So this scene where he's going through all of these brightly colored tops in his closet, and I knew exactly what he was thinking. I was just oh man, he's going to dress down to try and avoid anyone noticing. But then you get comments anyway. He can't win. He comes down to breakfast. We finally see his mother, by the way, who seems jolly. I really wish that he would talk to her. But he comes downstairs and everybody has to comment about how, oh my God, you look normal. Everybody at school has some shit to say about how he's dressed. You can't win. you know? I just really felt for him in this. And he goes to school, and he is wearing just a zip-up hoodie and a t-shirt in, like, you know, just drab green. And he gets harassed on the way in by Adam. What is it Adam says? What happened, tromboner? Woken up straight? He doesn't say anything. Well, you look shit. And it's, again, just like, okay, cool. Later on, he's in band practice. And he is not good, unfortunately. Now, it's really interesting because I can't decide if he's, like, genuinely not good, or if he is so self-conscious that he isn't letting himself get loose and just enjoy playing. Because that's a thing, like, I think a lot of us have had this where we know we're, like, fairly good at something when we're alone. And as soon as we try and do that shit in front of somebody, it's just the most embarrassing thing that has ever happened to you. And I can't help but wonder if that's what's going on with him, because I just feel like he's just missing it, but he has it in him, you know? Regardless, the teacher makes the mistake of singling him out. Everybody is being a dick to him about his playing. And what's so, like, they're so mean about it. At the same time, when you're participating in an ensemble thing and there's one person who is just not up to the standards of everybody else, it is frustrating, you know? I can understand being like, oh my God, and looking at each other. But once you just blurt out, oh, it's this guy, he blows, that sucks. So he says that he's going to leave, and he gets up, and the teacher follows him and says, hey, chill out, E-man. And that's it. Eric turns and screams at him, my name is Eric. Stop trying to be cool. You're an alcoholic music teacher who thinks that he gets jazz. You're tragic. And he turns to leave, and the teacher sort of reaches out to him, and he jumps down his throat, don't fucking touch me, with a tone that is like just an inch away from decking this teacher in the face. Like very, very, very close to physical violence. You can hear it. And inevitably, he does wind up unleashing on somebody in the hallway. So he is walking by, I can't remember this kid's name. He edges between him and a kid who looks like Adam, but isn't Adam. I can't remember this dude's name. And Anwar. Thank you, Ashleigh. I should remember that because I have a patron named Anwar. And somebody says, what happened to Tromboner? And Anwar says, I think he's going for that prison chic. And Eric just turns around and punches Anwar in the face in a roundhouse punch that is, it looks like the force of a fucking truck. Like, this was sincerely a really brutal punch. Like, the kind of thing that I'm like, I am surprised because he's cupping his hands under his face because he's bleeding. I thought there were going to be like a tooth or two in his hand, you know? Oh man, it was really satisfying. I can't lie. Like, it gets him in such trouble, but you know, I mean, I will say, later on, Anwar tells him that he finally came out to his mom using the fact that he got punched in the face somehow, and like makes it sound essentially like Eric committed a hate crime. And Eric is shocked at the fact that Anwar isn't already out to his family and is like, I thought that you had this all figured out. And I really liked that moment. Anwar has to remind him, like, we're not friends. But the idea that you're watching somebody else who seems to really, who is struggling with some of the same specific issues as you, and you think that they already are in a place that you wish you could get to yourself. That is so relatable. And it's almost a little disappointing when you find out that somebody doesn't have it figured out. Like, it can be comforting for sure. And that's certainly how Eric is taking it. But there's also an aspect of like, wow, it's not easy for anyone, is it? Like, my experience with this, and it's part of the reason I'm sort of trying very hard lately to not put any celebrities on any sort of pedestal or look to them for ways to be. I don't know how many of you follow Lizzo on Instagram, but, you know, Lizzo, for many of us women who are heavier, the fact that she is above average weight, especially as like a pop star, and she manages to just do these performances and have this talent and shine like she does, despite a society telling her that she can't be what she is and also be successful. She did it anyway. And it's something that you can't actually, like, you look at it and you're just like, how did you get here? You're superhuman. And I definitely had that, like, way of looking at her. And then on Instagram one day, she posted before and afters from when she did this juice cleanse. And it was one of those moments of just realizing, like, oh my God, I think of her as somebody who's completely at peace with her body, who is saying fuck the haters and does not care. And there was something, like, sort of devastating about realizing that she's not necessarily in that headspace all the time. She certainly attempts to occupy that space and is doing her best, but she also feels the pressure of needing to be thin and wanting to fulfill that, or at the very least, needing to be different than how she is now. Even if she doesn't intend to try and get thin, she's attempting to change her weight and her size. And I was so upset, you guys, when I saw this. This is months ago now. And I just felt like, oh my God, I really thought like here was somebody who truly had given up on that. And I say this as somebody who personally, I am attempting to change my size as we speak. I am not on a diet or anything like that, but I am making attempts to change the way that I eat. And I would like to lose weight. So it's such a hypocritical place to be because I want to change how much I weigh, but I want to have someone to look up to who doesn't want that. I want somebody that I can like basically project all of my hopes and dreams onto and be like, I want to be like them someday, even as I'm out here judging my body and looking in the mirror and wishing it was different. And it was just one of those moments of me realizing like I'm holding her to a standard I can't hold myself to, that I would feel was very unfair if somebody were to hold me to it. You know, there's a sort of mentality for some people who are in the body positivity movement that any attempt to change your weight is a betrayal to body positivity, which I don't believe. I don't. And yet I'm still holding her to that standard, which is super duper unfair. So anyway, this moment where he connects with Anwar for just a second and realizes that Anwar has his own struggles, and the whole vibe of it was really refreshing because I feel like the temptation so often when there are multiple gay characters on a show is they'll try and just like make the gay characters be pals or romantic partners. And I really like that this show has shown, first we have the lesbian couple who they were just like best friends and they fell into this relationship and it really wasn't working for one of them at all. And then we have, you know, Anwar and Eric who are sort of at odds with one another. And Anwar straight up says that he is obviously not Eric's type, which I was like thinking to myself, because Eric makes a joke about how I guess this means things could never work between us. And Eric is like, well, what's my type? And I'm like, I bet you go for like facial hair and brawn, my man. Like, I bet, but we'll see. There's so many comments. Sorry, guys. Dion says, that is so problematic with Eric being black. I was worried where the angry black man stereotype would end up for Eric in this show. That's fair. I didn't see it that way, but I also am like, you know, it's so contextual. I can understand feeling that though. And yeah, I'll be interested to see where it just felt like he was just at a boiling point himself in particular, but I can definitely get what you mean. Ashley says, yes, but also the juice cleanse thing wasn't about being thin. She said it was to do with digestion or something, if I recall. Yeah, she says, you don't post before and afters if it's just about that. Like, it was about her body. Like, frame it however you want, but come on. We all know what we're really doing when we try these cleanses. It's just like, but it's just, I just realized, like, oh my God, I have to stop, like, looking at celebrities to hope that I can eventually be like them. They're just people. They haven't clocked into some magical formula. It can look like they have because they have this wild success. But as human beings just trying to make it in the world, living day to day, that's not necessarily the same thing, Iantu says, it really broke my heart how harsh people were to her about that. Yeah, and it was like, I just decided not to pile on or say any shit publicly about it because I was tempted. And then I was like, you know what? What's the point? But personally, as somebody who just gets very little representation in media for my body type that's positive, she just meant a lot. And I think that can be a problem when somebody is a sort of pioneer for a particular group in an arena. Everybody's like fucking expectations get pinned on them in a way that is not fair. They didn't sign up for that, but it's something that to a degree can't be helped when there is no other person that those people can relate to. It's understandable why they put everything on that one person. It's just not fair. Let's see. It makes sense when there's only one person allowed to represent that group. Oh my God. Ashley just said the exact thing I was saying. Thank you, Ashley. Sorry, I didn't see your comment. So anyway, okay. So when he goes home, because he winds up getting called to the office and being suspended due to this. I am very curious because I don't think we even see whether or not Otis is aware this happened to Eric. By the end of this episode, it's unclear to me if Otis knows that Eric has been suspended. And that means that Otis is going to go to school the next day and Eric won't be there. If suspension works in this school like it does for mine. There's in-school suspension, which was always one of those things for me as a kid that I was like, what is even the point of this? Basically, in-school suspension was like, you have to do all of your homework separately, like in the cafeteria or in a booth in the library kind of thing, where it was, you were going to be kept completely separate and watched at all times and not be allowed to like socially interact with the other students. And I guess it's supposed to be sort of a way of making it so that the parents don't have to be home for several days in a row to watch over their kid. But I don't know how that works here. And his father is in the car with him. They've just gotten home. And his father is the one who said to him, you need to toughen up, which is what I was thinking. And Eric eventually says that to him, though his father says, this isn't what I meant. And Eric says, I'm just sick of everyone treating me like shit. And his father says, everybody feels that way, but you can't go around punching people. And I was like, I mean, to a degree, that's true. But when you just say everybody feels that way, it's just so like dismissive, of the very particular type of harassment that Eric is experiencing. And when his father said, if you want to live like this, you have to toughen up. And he says, but not like that. I'm like, what do you mean then? Because he came home with a fucking bruise on his face because he got punched. Like, if you don't mean that, what do you mean that was relevant when you saw that your son had been physically attacked? What did you mean then? Because it feels like that is what you meant, to be honest. Like, let's just fucking say it, it's the sort of thing that I think probably happens pretty easily as a parent. You just say something and then later on you get held to it and you realize that like you weren't super clear, or you put out an expectation without giving the tools as to how to achieve that. And this is why I don't want to be a fucking parent. It's too many things. It's too much. And he asks Eric, what kind of man do you want to be? And Eric just looks at his dad and says, "What kind of man do you want me to be, Dad?" And he just gets out of the car. And I loved the whole way that this is being handled by the show, because his father is being portrayed in a very compassionate light. Despite our frustration with him, it feels like he's really trying his best, and he doesn't have the vocabulary or tools to communicate effectively and protect his son, which is what he wants. And the fact that nobody else in the family seems to be aware of the fact that Eric is gay. His sisters don't seem aware. I don't think his mother knows, based on the whole way this is going. I just feel like this sort of sympathy for his dad being the one parent that's trying to navigate this and trying his best to... It feels like he's trying to not be judgmental about it, but he can't help it. It leaks out. But he's like trying. It's just really hard for him, you know? And I know I've said it already, but this is why I don't have kids, man. This is tricky. Like, and like I said, wanting to protect your son as well, knowing that there are going to be people out there who are going to lash out at him. And the only thing that he can do to protect himself is not be who he is. Ooh, great. Super helpful. Like, what do? You have to watch them walk out into the world exposed and just hope for the fucking best. Like, Jesus, you know? So, and this moment when he gets out of the car and he slams the door, his dad like flinches when he slams the door in this way that really, it felt like it hurt him. The interactions that he has with Eric are so fraught. And Eric is so angry. Understandably. He's so angry at his dad because I think his father represents, in his mind, like the outside world, even though his father wants to not be that. I think his father wants to be a support. And it's really hard to get that across without just reinforcing the garbage that other people are going to load onto this kid. For, you know, like, that's a really difficult balancing act. Being realistic with somebody about the danger and also supporting and providing a space for them. It's just good luck. So that's the deal with Eric. And we see later on Otis calling him, and Eric just looks at the phone but does not pick up. And I didn't blame him at all. Like, Otis just tries a call, hangs up the phone, and that's it. That's the last time that he gives it a try. Text him, dude. Say something, you know? And he starts texting, and I thought that's what he was doing. And then it turns out that he's texting Ola, and I was like, really? Really? Come on, dude. All right. So let's back up and let's talk about Otis. So the episode opens with a memory, as it turns out. Otis's father is a psychiatrist and I guess, or therapist. I get the impression psychiatrist, though. Yeah, here it is. Remy Milburn, Master of Psychiatry. There it is. So he is meeting with a patient who is telling him that she keeps having inappropriate thoughts about him. And Remy says that this is very common. And the way that he says it, and the way that he looks at her, I was like, this man really wants to fuck this bitch. Like, you can just tell. And he says it's something we can work through together. And she sits up and says, I'd like to work through it. I'd also like to have sex with you right now. And he gives her this look and just says, And I have to say, this man has been cast as a sex symbol in a number of movies as like a love interest. And I have never found him attractive personally. He just doesn't have a look that I go for. But the restraint of this scene, you can feel that he is aroused, but he is like holding it inside as much as he can until she decides to initiate something. I found very sexy. And I was kind of like, oh shit, okay, I see it. However, ew. He goes on to fuck his patient, which is just a gross breach of I was going to say etiquette, but it's also like ethically, I believe, a violation of like some vow that he's taken, if I'm not mistaken. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but could he be like put out of business for this? I feel like he could. So it cuts from there to this little kid who's obviously baby Otis, cast amazingly, by the way. This kid looks fucking exactly like him. It is astonishing. And he hears this noise and he goes to the door and he sees his dad fucking this woman. Now, he doesn't know what his dad is doing, but he does see that his dad has no pants on. And he asks his mother, why was daddy naked with that lady? And his mother gets this look on her face, and it's not even shock. It's more like, fucking here we go again. Like, I suspect that he has been fucking around and she was perfectly aware of it in her way. But the fact that he has now fucked a patient right in their home with their son, like 2 doors down, is just taking it to a level that she's like, all right, you fucking know what. So this, it becomes clear, is the origin of his issue with sex. Because she tells him what sex is, although it's very hetero. She says sex is when a man puts his penis inside a woman's vagina. And I'm like, it really isn't, but that's sure, fine. Okay, he's a kid. And he asks, does it hurt? And she says, it can. Intercourse can be wonderful, but it can also cause tremendous pain. And if you're not careful, sex can destroy lives. And I really love this scene because she is trying to warn him in a way that, like, to her, it makes complete sense that she's just making it clear. It's not a game. Be careful. But it makes total sense to me how, as a little kid, you hear that and you just take that so to heart, and it becomes this thing that just repeats in your head forever. Like, I'm certain that there are things in my mind that if I like looked at it, I'd be like, oh my God, that's like something my mom said to me when I was like 9, and I still like believe it somewhere in me, you know? So I really appreciated it, because this is another reason that I don't want children, is that you can make a comment that you don't really think is important, and they will fucking internalize that shit, and it will become part of who they are, and you don't even realize that it's happened. I mean, that's true of anyone, to be honest. Like, you just need to be careful with the way that you talk to people, because you never know how something is going to hit someone. But children are a very particular type of impressionable, and it's just so much more true with them and can have such a lasting effect. I really, this was well done. It makes sense for me. So we then see him talking to his dad via Skype, and his dad is trying to just be like, hey, tell your old man what's going on. He admits that he had the fight with Eric, but he clearly doesn't really want to talk about it. And then he brings up the fact that he's a virgin. And his dad is like, at first, there's nothing wrong with it. And he says, he's trying to tell his dad, I can't jerk off. But he can't say that. And he just says, I'm behind my peers. And his dad says, the first time you do it, it'll probably be bad. The good stuff comes later. So ask yourself, why am I waiting? It's kind of like skydiving. At some point, you've just got to chuck yourself out of the plane. I kind of get what he's saying, but it's also coming from a guy who doesn't... This is one of those things. He's not wrong. I was rather lucky in that for me, sex was great, like almost immediately. And I say great in terms of my understanding at the time. I look back now and I'm like, ooh, girl, you could have been doing so much better. But at the time, I had a lot of fun. I didn't have like terrible, awkward moments. I didn't have a lot of pain. But I don't feel like Remy understands who Otis is super well, which makes sense. And to me, Otis is just such a soft boy and like isn't the type to have casual sex to just get it out of his system and do it. And he would know that if he had gotten to know his son more. It's just the kind of advice that in general, I get what you mean, but I don't think it's right for him. Some people are like that. You know, it's some people are able to have a casual sexual relationship, and other people, it's just either not possible or not appealing. And I feel like we see later with Lily, just it's not appealing for him. You know, I think he understands the logic of it as well and wishes that he could set aside some of his feelings here for that. But I don't think that he would have reacted this way to Maeve necessarily. I think that the trauma of what he saw and experienced as a kid and the way it completely imploded his family probably would have been easier to work past with a partner that he like knew and trusted more. But instead he like short circuits and like has a panic attack. And the way they film the panic attack is really quite good, but we'll get there. So anyway, as soon as his dad says this, I'm like, oh shit, is he going to go track down Lily? And that kind of is what he does. He goes and he sees her propositioning yet another dude. He goes up to her and asks if she's still interested, and she's like, most definitely. And then she comes over. There is this incredibly drawn out awkwardness between the two of them where he's trying to work his way up, but it's just so clear he is not ready. And then they like kind of are kissing. She's kissing his neck, asks if she can touch his penis. And all of a sudden he shoves her off him and curls up on the floor and says, get my mom, get my mom. And is like in the fetal position crying. And to her credit, Lily just goes and gets her like half dressed. She's just like, well, whatever. Lily honestly is goals in her way. I love the whole fucking discussion later where she's talking about the like weird comic thing that she's drawing. Like she's just telling them exactly what it is. Oh yeah, you know, they have vulvas instead of tongues. And I was like, girl, what? And we see the fight between Remy and Jean, and he's talking to her. He's totally gaslighting her. You're behaving like a crazy woman. And she says, you make me into a crazy woman, and picks up something and chucks it at him. I can't be around you when you're like this. And it's just the grossest. I wish so much that she would blow up his spot, because obviously he's out here making money on the books. Are they pretending they're still together? Is that why he sent shit for her to sign? Are they acting like they're still like a couple? Or because otherwise, why aren't you just blowing up his entire reputation by telling everybody that the so-called psychiatrist was a gaslighting adulterer with probably more than one client? Let's be honest. He engaged with this one woman, and it did not feel like it was this breach for him. It felt like this was probably some shit that he has done before. I just hated him so much. I hate him. Oh my God. And when Otis like sort of wakes up, it's like he kind of passed out almost. Like he doesn't remember what the hell even happened. And he tries to say that it's just that he got overheated. And his poor Jean is just, she does not know how to handle this at all, you know, which, I mean, how would you? So he leads Lily out, and Lily's just like, yeah, my expectations were super low. I don't think you're ready. And this is when he runs into Ola. They joke around a little bit, and she finally is like, you're funny. You want to go out? Here's my number, and puts it in his phone. And I was just like, girl, you're too good for him. He's not nice. It's not true. He's not nice, but like, I'm just still mad at him. Meanwhile, there's been this whole other thing that's going on between Jean and, what's his name? The builder. He is, guys, Jacob. Guys, Jacob is fine as fuck. I'm just saying. Like, I get it. The chemistry between the two of them is bonkers. Truly bonkers. You just feel it. You know, I just love that it's so tangible in the scenes they're in together. And you're just like, just fuck the whole time, you know? And they are making out when he has his panic attack. So I'm feeling like they were going to hook up, and they got interrupted by Lily, and now Jean is sort of pulling away from him. And based on the information that we have gleaned from Otis's memories, now it makes sense why Jean tries to be so impersonal with her partners. She isn't interested in getting attached to anybody because she got really fucking hurt. Understandable, you know? Especially when we see how Remy gaslit her in particular, that is one of those things that is so particularly gross, is making your partner think they're nuts for believing what is actually happening is indeed happening. I am ashamed to say, but will admit that I definitely gaslit Brendan a bit when we were together, because I was already talking to Owen. And even though we had like agreed that we were going to get divorced already, it was like, I didn't want Brendan to know I was already like moving on basically. And so he would voice some concerns about the like amount of time that I spent chit chatting with Owen. And I would just make it like, oh my God, you're so overreacting. Like, truly, really looking back, I'm just like, oh my God, I was so gross. I was really, really gross. Like, there were so many better ways to handle that than what I did. And I'm just super ashamed of it, but it happened. And that's the thing, when you're just like not being honest with your partner and you are intent on continuing the behavior that you were already engaging with, you have to gaslight them if you don't want the relationship to implode. And truly, I want to know, I have to assume that it was their professional relationship that he was really trying to hold on to, because it doesn't seem in that scene that he is concerned about her as a partner. He's just, I feel like that has to be most of it for him, you know? So anyway, Jacob says something to her about, we should talk about the pheromones, which is obviously his way of being like, I feel like we should definitely revisit the fact that we were about to have sex. Do you want to do that? And she just hands him a check and tells him thank you for doing the bathroom. This is obviously the second job that she called him out on because she wanted to see him again. And he takes the check with this sort of look like, yeah, all right. And he says, it was really nice to meet you. And she says, yes, it was nice meeting you too. And really watches him walk away as she closes the door. It's very, very clear. She's doing this as self-preservation, but not because she wants to. And I'm just like, oh, bitch. Call him up. Tell him you need a whole new bathroom. Tell him you want a whole floor that's just a bathroom. Get him in there working every day. Do what you need to do. But you got to nail that dude down, because he is not going to be on the market long looking like that and having them pheromones and shit. So just hop to. That's all I'm saying. So, all right. There's so many things to talk about this episode. So finishing up with Otis, let's talk about his meeting with Amy. This is so funny. Guys, I love this so much. So Amy has been seeing this super hot guy, the one that came to study group, but obviously was only invited because he's hot as balls. And I really like the sort of prelude to this. So she's talking to Maeve and telling her, I've been seeing Steve, top heavy Steve, built like a chupa chup. And she points him out. I forgot about how he said he has underdeveloped calf muscles. Steve is fine as fuck, by the way. Amy definitely has a type because he's like Adam, but like hotter. And at this point, Anwar comes up and just gives her a huge stack of books to return to the library for him and informs her that he also has some late fees. Oops. And then walks away. And Maeve stares at Amy like, girl, what the fuck? Seriously? You're just going to let him? And Amy says, I like to be helpful. And this bears out a ton in the way that she deals in relationships. So she's talking to Otis later when they have their little meeting and explains to him that she's having a problem where she's having sex with Steve and everything seems fine. And then she'll try and sort of dirty talk him. But it's not even just dirty talk. She'll ask him, do you want to come on my face? Do you want to come on my tits? And he doesn't have the reaction she wants. She's hoping that he's going to be like, yeah, fuck yeah. Instead, he's like, no, wait, do you want that? And she never stopped to think about whether she wants that. And just this moment of her taking the books and saying, I like to be helpful. And it just ties in so well with a person who puts themselves last and doesn't mind being like a prop for other people. It just makes total sense with Amy's personality. It's really interesting to see Amy as both part of the popular crowd, but also like uniquely sort of pathetic in her way. And when she talks to Otis and Otis is like, well, what do you want? And she's like, I don't know. And he's like, well, what about when you're not with Steve? And she realizes that he means masturbation. And she's like, oh, I don't do that. And this is one of those things, guys. So she winds up going home and masturbating and like figuring it out for the first time. And she can't stop. Like once she has cracked the code of how to give herself an orgasm, she is just masturbating all over the room for hours. And the next day is acting like she's practically hungover from it, And I wish so much that I had been as young as Amy when I figured it out. This is one of those like great regrets because first of all, education about the female orgasm is non-existent in schools. That is just not covered. Because it's not necessary for pregnancy, nobody cares. Nobody cares. So it's not talked about. All they want to give you is information on how to not get fucking knocked up or get an STD. As far as actually enjoying sex, not a thing. Meanwhile, I am over here horny as a motherfucker at age 13 and masturbating constantly with no real progress, not really sure why I'm not like, it's not really like doing anything. And it was because all I was doing was internal. I assumed, well, you have an orgasm when there's a penis, so I'll use objects as if they were penises, without knowing the clitoris is the fucking thing. Because of course, as when you're uneducated, all you know is the clitoris is this little pinpoint. You don't know that it's this whole like upside down Y-shaped multi-pronged thing that like has all of this surface area, actually. It's under your skin, but it's there. So I had no idea. And like, I still had orgasms from penetration. So it wasn't like I was going completely orgasm-less, but I was not remotely tapping into the potential that was actually there. Guys, do you want to know how old I was by the time I had my first solely clitoral orgasm? I was 21 years old. 21. I had been fucking since I was 14. I swear to God, I had no idea. And I only got there by using a vibrator. And it was like another 3 years before I figured out how to do it manually without a vibrator. It took ages, you guys, because I didn't know. And because I had been having sex for so long, I didn't look into it because I was like, I know what I'm doing. I didn't. I so didn't. I knew what I was doing to them. I knew how to give a blowjob like a fucking champ. I am amazing at it. I started practicing how to do it before I ever even had sex because I was just like, oh, I bet that feels really amazing. I'm going to give a blowjob the way that I would want to have a blowjob. Not thinking about, well, what do I want? Doesn't even occur to me. So I'm out here practicing how to give a blowjob on a banana. And a fucking practically a decade nearly passes before I'm able to do that shit for myself. Tragic. And I am certain that I am in very good company because like I said, education about the female orgasm and the clitoris is so slim out in the world. It's just not something that is prioritized in sex education almost ever. So I sympathize is what I'm saying. The whole thing with her, he says, it feels like you're performing. Yes. And I wish more guys were like this, where they would sense that and realize oh, she's playing a role. She's watched porn, thinks that's what we want, and she's doing that. Because many, many people get their sole source of education about actual sex, not just the mechanics and biology of it, is via porn. And porn is hugely male gazy most of the time. So yeah, especially when as a female, you are taught that your worth is in how many men want to fuck you. You learn how to perform because that raises your worth, right? Allegedly. But you can't be too good at it because then that lowers your worth. Ooh, it's very fucking... So, anyway, I definitely was guilty of the performance thing. And let me tell you, I had not met a man who noticed or cared until probably Brendan. Performing, unfortunately, even though it's not genuine, even though you're not really necessarily into whatever, men love it. It's super sad. So the fact that she's fucking a teenager who can tell and gives a shit, marry him. Literally, marry him, please, because that is so rare. So, good for her. Good for him. He's super hot, and he wants to give her an orgasm, and bless him. Bless him forever. I love it. So, yeah. Dion says, women are taught that making men satisfied is the only way we can get satisfaction. 100%. And it's so funny, too, because, men are so easy. Getting a man to come is nothing. It's we act like it's this accomplishment and it's just not, it's so easy. And doing all this extra stuff when it's us that are the complicated ones. It's such a shame that we put all of our energy into the totally wrong place, because there's so many, the 90s was especially the whole, men are from Mars, women are from Venus, and getting a woman to orgasm takes forever was, this joke that would come up all the time. And thinking about it, well, yeah, I was literally, 22 by the time I figured out how to give myself a manual clitoral orgasm. it makes sense why so many men are terrible at sex when we don't actually have any education about the female orgasm or the clitoris. It is really tricky. Getting myself to come, not super easy. And I frequently am unable to convey what it is I actually want because your body feels like it's fucking shifting around, literally. Finger a little bit to the left. Not really. That's too hard. That's too, like, I'm not even trying to, like, be hard on men for oftentimes not managing it. But I think they would be vastly better if we actually made it a priority. Instead, all we want to talk about is dicks and jizz. And that takes no effort at all. It's weird that we're so focused on that when that's the easy part, except that that's what makes babies, and that's what everybody gets all fucking up in their feelings about. So, yeah, I mean, pussies are tricky, is what I'm saying. Like, for some women, it's a lot easier. I have a friend who literally cannot orgasm via penetration. It just doesn't happen for her. I can. It's not as frequent. But, you know, everybody is totally different. And that's the thing. Guys want to have like a rule book about how they can just approach a pussy, and not every pussy's the same. Sorry. Hate to tell you, you're going to have to get to know her. I know it's frustrating. It's frustrating for us too. It really is. So let's see. Ashleigh says, I know it's impossible, but what I would give for my teen self to have never discovered porn. I don't know how many times I worried that I wouldn't be able for the big bad world of double fisting. Oh my God. And not to be too TMI, but that's never even been something I've had to worry about, shockingly. Yeah, there were a lot of things that I was like, oh my God, what if he wants? And then it was just like not a thing. So anyway, I really enjoyed this subplot. The fact that, like, Amy it never occurred to her, and she's with a guy who asks. I'm very happy for her. Proud of you, girl. And then we have the whole thing with Adam. Since we're talking about Amy's dude looking like Adam, Adam gets an award for best essay on some topic. And it becomes very clear he did not write this shit. His parents throw him a party, telling him how proud they are of him. His dad begins to cotton on, I think, to the fact that he didn't write it once he describes Langston Hughes as a golfer. And in a moment that I didn't expect, Eve's teacher, her writing teacher, can tell Eve wrote that paper. And approaches her and is like, you're really good. Or Maeve, thank you. I'm calling her Eve. Weird. Where'd I get that? Thank you, Ashleigh. But she can tell and approaches her about like a scholarship opportunity that she could apply for. And I really like it because Maeve talks to Otis and he can tell also that she wrote it. He just knows. I feel like that's meant to be maybe a hint that, you know, he knows her better than Jackson does, but, and eventually the teacher goes to the principal and shares her assumption that he didn't write the paper, that his son didn't write the paper. And the principal tells her, basically, can we talk about this later? And I was very curious because there's a sense to it of him, like, wanting to deny it, even though he knows it's true. Adam cheated. But I think he's trying to figure out, how can I admit that that's true without there being like a major scandal about it, which is even more embarrassing than him being a failure, is that he cheated. And how is he going to handle this? And I'm just really hoping he's not going to turn around and like fire that teacher or something, you know, because he doesn't seem like a dishonest person. He's definitely a shit, but I feel like that is a type of vindictive and aversion to scandal that I'm not sure I see in him. I don't know. We'll see. And then lastly, there's a whole thing with Maeve and her brother. Her brother is played by this actor. I don't know his name, but he's super familiar. And, she had not told Jackson that she had a brother at all, as it turns out. And he tells her that he had been in Texas And the reason that he bailed was because he says at first, I was selling this guy's merchandise and she thought it was drugs. And he's like, no, that's not it. It was rip-off Nikes. And it was combined with a very ill-informed, drunken night out. I lost them all. And there was a very angry and aggressive supplier. And I just had to disappear. And I'm really wondering if it's actually blown over now that he's back. I think the casting is excellent. He has a very prominent chin like Maeve does. They look like they could be related for sure. I know that he was in something that I've watched, but I can't place him. And I really hope that he doesn't like completely let her down, because he's back in her life and it's obvious that she missed him and she was worried about him, and he paid the rent, which is nice, even though he's borrowing money from her a little bit later. Or maybe Jackson paid it. I'm realizing now, oh my God, maybe Jackson paid it. I don't know. But I think it's meant to be that he paid it. But why is he borrowing money from her then? I don't know. But we'll see if he sticks around. And at first he tries to sort of mock her for Jackson, but he seems to realize pretty quickly that like she actually likes this guy, is sincere. And he seems to be making an effort to get to know Jackson later. But Jackson is struggling with trying to balance how he feels about Maeve and wanting this connection with how he's doing with his sports. And he sort of tells her that he's going to have to focus on that and to not come to practice anymore, reading between the lines. But when she doesn't, he's bummed. So he goes to her house and her brother asks Jackson if he wants a beer. And she's like, well, he doesn't drink when he's training. And her brother's like, oh, come on. And I'm like, oh, man. Like, Maeve's been respectful of what has been put in place by his mothers. But if her brother starts to interfere with Jackson's shit, then Maeve's going to get blamed for that. And they're not going to want him to see her anymore. So I'm a little bit worried about it, is all I'm saying. And her brother seems like a decent dude in general. But like bailing without even telling her, you could have told her. You could have given her any sort of indicator that you were okay in what was happening, but he didn't. So that sucks. Killing Eve, that's what it is, Ashleigh. Thank you. Oh, I forgot about that guy. Weird. He seems so young here in comparison. All right, I have to wrap up. I'm over time. Thank you again, Ashleigh, very much for commissioning this. Thank you guys for hanging out with me and commiserating with me. I appreciate you all so much. And until next time, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.